Let's turn to Nona Peltier now with business. Thanks, Anna. What are we looking at today? The BNZ's result.
Yeah,
right?
the Bank of New Zealand came out with their result today.
ANZ yesterday.
ANZ, we're going to have Westpac on Monday.
Right.
And we had the ASB Bank earlier this year because they have a different reporting season.
Right.
They report at the end of December. These guys are reporting at the end of March. So
good result yesterday for the ANZ, right? Up.
Yeah, the ANZ. Now, was it yesterday? It seems like it might have been earlier. I'm not sure if it was yesterday, as a matter of fact.
But how's the BNZ gone?
Well, the Bank of New Zealand, their profit was a little bit lower than it was the year earlier. But they thought the performance was still better than last year's because they measure, there's two ways that they measure their profitability. They're saying that basically that their cash profit measure was an improvement, whereas their net profit, which is the one we typically report, was down. So they were down 8% in terms of their absolute net profit to $416 million, which is still pretty good, whereas the cash profit measure was up 9% to $484 million.
Right. Where does their profit go, Nona? They're called the Bank of New Zealand. Who owns them?
They're owned by the National Australia Bank, NAB, and so the profit goes to NAB shareholders, and that's really true for all of the four biggest banks. They're all owned by Australian banks, so that's where their parents are. Yep.
So a lot of profits going offshore, presuming the shareholders, the NAB shareholders.
Yes.
Well, they will be.
Well, but of course, don't forget though that New Zealand companies and fund managers and so on invest in banking in Australia. So it could be that New Zealand shareholders will indirectly have an exposure there through institutional investors and so on.
How did the markets react to all of this?
Well, first of all, the market was down almost a third.
Did I miss something? Have I missed a question that I should have asked you?
No, it's okay.
No, is there anything else we need to know? You've got lots of papers there that aren't about the BNZ. Is there something else we need to know?
Well, I was just going to say that we did talk to the Bank of New Zealand late this afternoon, and they're going to have to compete a little harder for deposits. So people who have some money to save in the bank might find they should shop around a bit because banks are looking to give you a little bit more interest on your deposits because it's cheaper than if they have to go overseas to get that money. Yeah. So, we always talk about what are the options for, regular punters. Shop around for a good deposit rate if you have some money to save because you might get a better deal.
Thanks, Nate.
And so on the markets, we were down about 0.33% today. 23 points down to 7,383. The New Zealand dollar took a bit of a hit overnight, mostly because the U.S. Federal Reserve indicated that they are still on track to hike interest rates, even though the U.S. economic data has been a little less, not as good as the New Zealand economic indicators in any case. But the U.S. Federal Reserve seems to think that they're going to still be on track. The markets are going to be watching really carefully for the labor data that comes out on early Saturday morning here in New Zealand time to see if that, in fact, is going to play out. Meanwhile, the New Zealand dollar fell slightly, but has been steady through the day. It's 68.8 US cents, 92.7 Australian, and 53.4 British pence.
Nona Peltier, a business reporter here in the Auckland studio. Thank you very much indeed, Nona.